The first time Daniel saw her, she was standing beneath a golden sycamore tree, sipping wine from a glass that caught the late autumn sunlight like a ruby. He was 27, just a year out of graduate school, eager, unsure, filled with ambition but clouded by uncertainty. He would later learn her name was Celeste, was likely in her late 40s, perhaps even 50. There was something about her that held time differently, as though she'd been carved from a memory he had yet to form. It was at a small art exhibit in the town of Kinsvale, nestled between the mountains and the sea. Daniel had only come because a friend invited him, then canceled. He'd almost turned back, but something about the way the wind whispered across the hills, the golden hour light, the strange stillness of the place. It felt like the start of something unspeakably important. Celeste wore a long black velvet coat, and her silver-streaked hair was gathered loosely at the nape of her neck. She didn't notice him at first. She stood gazing at a painting of a woman alone at a train station, eyes shadowed, hands clutching a letter. The plaque below the artwork read, "Waiting doesn't stop time." Daniel lingered a few feet behind her, caught between wanting to speak and fearing what he'd say. Finally, he cleared his throat. She turned slowly, her gaze steady and unreadable. "You like it?" she asked. "I think I'm trying to," he replied with a sheepish grin. Her laughter was unexpected, low, warm, knowing. "Honest? That's rare here." He smiled, suddenly nervous. "You sound like you've been to a lot of these." "Maybe I have," she said, sipping her wine. "Or maybe I've just watched people longer than they've noticed." They talked about the painting, the artist, the softness of silence in certain places. Her mind was sharp, her words precise. Daniel found himself leaning into her presence. She wasn't just beautiful, she was aware in a way most people weren't. Her voice didn't flirt. It unraveled things. Inside him he hadn't known were knotted. By the end of the night, they were seated at a small table outside the gallery, her heels abandoned beneath the chair, bare feet brushing against the cobblestone. The air had turned cold, but they stayed. "So," she said, tilting her head, "what is a beautiful, lost boy like you doing in a forgotten place like this?" "I'm not sure," he answered honestly. "But maybe I came looking for you." The smile faded from her lips. For a moment, Daniel thought he had said too much. But then she reached across the table and touched his hand, her fingers cool and sure. "You have no idea what that means," she whispered. That night changed everything. Over the weeks that followed, Daniel found himself returning to Kinsvale more often, sometimes without telling anyone. Celeste lived in a house of stone and ivy on the edge of the sea cliffs. The kind of place that belonged in novels, books stacked along every wall, windows catching every kind of light, rooms that smelled of old paper, lavender, and longing. They didn't define what they were. No declarations. No promises. Yet Daniel knew without question that he was falling deeply and without escape. She read him poetry over morning coffee, recited Neruda and Rilke while barefoot in the kitchen. She told him stories about her years in Paris and Vienna, how she'd once loved a pianist who wrote her music instead of letters. She didn't ask him to stay. She didn't ask him to leave. She simply welcomed him into her quiet world, like it was a place waiting just for him. At night, they lay tangled in each other, the sound of the ocean crashing outside, her breath soft against his shoulder. She kissed him with a slowness that rewrote his ideas of intimacy. He had been with women before, but never like this. Never like her. Still, there were moments she would disappear. Not physically, emotionally. She'd retreat, quiet, staring out the window for hours. And Daniel, wise enough to understand grief in others, never asked why. He waited. He held space. He loved her in silence when words might break her open. One stormy night, she returned to him shaking, drenched from standing outside. He wrapped her in a towel, kissed her palms, and made tea. "I was married once," she said, her voice distant. "He died when I was 30. I spent the next 10 years forgetting how to be touched." Daniel said nothing, only held her tighter. "Then 5 years ago, I fell in love again. He was 12 years younger. Said I was too much of a past, not enough future. left me with silence. There was a tremble in her voice but no self-pity. I'm not that woman anymore, Daniel. I don't want you to fix me. I'm not here to fix anything, he said gently. I'm here because I don't want a life where you're a memory instead of a presence. She broke then. Not loudly, but in the way people do when they've held on too tightly for too long. Their love grew in quiet places, in fog-drenched bookstores, whispered beach walks, long evenings filled with old records and barefoot dancing. But the town watched. Whispers followed them. Older women stared. Men snickered. His friends called it obsession. Her friends called it foolishness. Why him? Someone asked Celeste at a dinner party after one too many drinks. You could have anyone your age. She had only smiled. Yes, but no man my age looks at me like I'm the beginning of something. Daniel heard about it days later. It made him want to build her an entire world. He wrote her notes on scraps of paper, slid them between pages of her books. You are my favorite chapter. Time doesn't scare me, losing you does. But time was unkind. Job offers came from the city. Panels. Publications. His future stretched out like a golden path in Celeste. Celeste was an old stone cottage, a stormy sea, a quiet rhythm. She never asked him to choose. But she began to watch him like she was memorizing him.